YouTube, what's going on, y'all? It is I, Tevin El Chapo. Friends call me Chop, and we are back with another review. This time, we're talking about J. Cole's latest project, Might Delete Later. North Carolina rapper J. Cole does not need much of an explanation at this point. He has been in the limelight since he first got on the scene in the early 2010s, and this is his first project since his last joint mixtape with Dreamville that came out around this time last year. But then the year before that was his last solo work, which was The Off Season. Now, The Off Season was definitely an album that I deeply enjoyed. I enjoyed having J. Cole come back with his wordplay, his bars, and just had a lot of dope moments and a lot of dope songs that I really come back to. Now, while I did enjoy the Dreamville compilation project that came out last year, I didn't necessarily enjoy it more than The Off Season. But I can appreciate Cole and Dreamville coming out with music ahead of the Dreamville Festival, the concert that Dreamville as a label has every single year. So even if you're a fan like myself who couldn't make it to the Dreamville Festival, then you still are able to enjoy some good music coming out around this time of year, which is always dope. And J. Cole is actually in the middle of a rap beef with Kendrick Lamar off of Kendrick's last verse on Future and Metro Boomin's last project. Make sure you check out my review for that album as well. So coming into this album, I didn't even anticipate Cole dropping a full body of work. I definitely was mainly looking for a Kendrick Lamar response more than anything. And while I did get a response, I was also able to get a full album that I did in fact enjoy. Granted, I didn't necessarily enjoy it as much as I thought I would. Now, of course, I have to address the elephant in the room, which would be the 7-minute drill track that ends the entire project. This is the song where J. Cole, in fact, disses or responds to Kendrick Lamar. Now, while I did think that bar for bar, the diss was fine, I didn't necessarily think that the production was any better than what Kendrick had. Obviously, Kendrick had Metro Boomin behind him, but still, I didn't necessarily find the production on Cole's record to be really interesting to any real degree. And also I thought that the bars were solid enough, but he didn't have any real energy or charisma towards what he was saying, as much as it felt like he was almost obligated to make this response record. And I'm currently recording this review the day after J. Cole got on stage at Dreamville Fest and publicly apologized to Kendrick Lamar for the diss record, admitting that there was something that he didn't necessarily sit right with doing and something that he felt peer pressured into doing, which again, I can totally hear on the record itself. Now, to be honest, his apology is something of a mixed bag for me. On one end, I can appreciate him being mature in this situation and being able to own to the fact that he didn't necessarily agree with responding to Kendrick Lamar or the approach that he took with responding to Kendrick Lamar. But at the same time, as a hip hop fan, I don't think it was a good look. I think that if that was the approach Cole was going to take, he should have never dropped the diss record in the first place and let his response at Dreamville Festival be the response to Kendrick Lamar and let that be the end of it. But I think once you step into that arena of giving bars to someone at that capacity, even if you don't believe in it after the fact, you gotta stand on it after the fact. But that's just my humble opinion. I don't necessarily expect Kendrick to come back with another response. Even though he could possibly create a response at any moment, I didn't anticipate him coming out of nowhere to diss him in the first place. So I think I would be interested in seeing what Kendrick does from here. Obviously, we're all still waiting on Drake to have some type of response to all this as well, because he was included in it too. But I think that overall, as much as I respect Cole for being mature in the situation, I think he could have handled it a little bit better. And honestly, it just makes him look bad. Like, to be honest with you, it's not really the best of looks, even in the most respectable ways possible that I can say it. As a man, I respect it and understand it. But as a hip hop head, as a hip hop fan, it's kind of a no-go to do something like that, or at least to do it as quickly as you did. If you want to apologize for it, at least let more time go by before you start apologizing for the diss record. I just think that it was a little too soon, it's a little too premature. I think that if he was going to feel that way about it, he should have at least recorded the song and then just not dropped it at all. I've seen a lot of discourse online about his apology, and honestly, it seems like the fan base is about as split about this as I am. A lot of people saying that Kendrick officially won the beef. A lot of other people saying that they respect Cole for being mature in the situation. And then you still have people wondering what the hell is Drake doing in all this. So I think that it's still going to be very interesting to see what happens next from all this. But overall, if we're just talking strictly the track 7-minute drills on the project, it's fine. It's okay. I don't think it's my favorite track on the project overall. I don't think that it's really interesting, even as a diss record, because again, it's just not as dynamic, or even the production is not as dynamic as with Kendrick on Like That with Future. But overall, I think that it was a solid record. I don't have anything against it. And honestly, that's how I feel about this entire project. It's called Might Delete Later, and I can totally tell that this feels like a lot of throwaway records from J. Cole. I don't necessarily see or hear anything on here that is overly interesting or overly grandiose or anything compelling or anything that I find super duper earwormy in any capacity. It's just a lot of songs that are kind of middle of the road for me. I do like the first song, Pricey, with Ari Lennox and Young Dro, with Young Dro doing the hook and Ari doing the refrain for the hook. I think that this was a solid record. It was very interesting to hear Young Dro in that capacity. And I think Cole does his thing. I think the production was solid overall as well. You also have Ready 24 featuring Cameron. I appreciate Cole bringing Cameron back and this time actually giving him a verse to rap on. That was really solid. I also liked Ab-Soul and Daylight going back and forth on the song Pie. Now, this is another song that has gotten a lot of controversy because of some of the transgender lyrics that J. Cole had as well. Personally, I don't have an opinion on those bars. I don't think that, compared to Ab-Soul and Daylight and their rapping, I don't think that Cole's bars were that good to be that mad about anything he said, but it wasn't a bad track overall between any of the three artists. I think my biggest gripe is just how long the record is. Like, the song is almost 6 minutes, and I can't honestly tell you why it needed to be that long, given that it was only 3 artists on it, but it definitely was enjoyable at the very beginning when it was just Ab-Soul and Daylight, and then when Cole finally comes into it, I'm all but almost mentally check out at that point. So like I said, it's not a bad record, just runs a little bit long for me, and you know, something that I have in fact been going back to despite that though. You got Hunting Wabbits, which is a Elmer Fudd reference. I do in fact like the production on here. I like Cole's rapping, even though he takes a lot more of a reserved approach, almost to the point of borderline mumbling, but I still enjoyed the record overall for sure. Sticks and Stones is probably one of the more dynamic records on the entire album. I really enjoyed the production on here as well. I think that Cole was rapping with a little bit more energy, and it definitely made it a lot more entertaining. But aside from those highlights, I really don't have too much of anything else to say about this album. I don't necessarily consider it to even really be an album because obviously it's called Might Delete Later. Everything on here to me sounds like throwaway music, throwaway material that wouldn't make J. Cole's next full-length album, which should be The Fall Off at this point, unless he decides to drop another project in between like he's been doing, because The Fall Off has been projected to come out for like the last 5 years now at this point. But yeah, I don't really have too much of anything else to say about this record, really. Like I said, it's just very typical J. Cole styles and music. It doesn't necessarily sound like J. Cole is trying too hard in anything that he's saying or doing on this record, on any of the records rather. I think Boss's contributions were cool. I don't really have much of an opinion on them. I think that the J. Cole and Boss collaborations have been better in the past, so that's why I didn't really mention them in some of my highlights. I think the only song that I don't particularly care for on the whole album is the song Fever, and that's mainly because this feels like such a Drake song to me. Like, I just feel like Cole is trying to make a Drake type love harmony song and whatnot, and I'm just not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of rappers doing that at all. I've said that multiple times about Future at this point, but it's not something I particularly care to hear from Cole either. And I know he's done love-esque type songs in the past, and some have been better than others, to be brutally honest, but it's just not a lane that I particularly go to J. Cole for. But yeah, honestly, that's really about it for me. I don't have anything else really too crazy to say. I think maybe Crocodile Tears is another highlight for me as well, but it's not anything. Like I said, if you are a fan of J. Cole, there's nothing here that you haven't heard Cole do better or at a bigger level. Obviously, again, this is called Might Delete Later, which clearly should give you an indication of what type of material you're going to be hearing from him. But even at Cole's absolute worst, he's still better than a lot of other rappers in this current generation. He definitely does up the ante with a lot of things that he can do musically. I just don't necessarily feel like this is one of those moments. So even though this is a low light for me, I still enjoyed it overall. There's no any real bad songs or any songs that I truly hated, but I'm just questioning just how much replayability this project is going to have, especially now that J. Cole has apologized to Kendrick for his diss record. I really don't know how bad I'm gonna keep listening to this after these next couple weeks. So if I had to give it a rating, I would probably give it 3.5 flames out of 5. Yeah, a solid 3.5 flames. Like, if it was a little bit more memorable, a little bit more dynamic, I probably would give it a 4 or something higher than that. But as it currently stands, this is perfectly fine. It's perfectly listenable. If you are already a fan of J. Cole, then I definitely would suggest giving this a listen. If you're not a fan of J. Cole, for whatever the case may be, maybe skip this one. You know, maybe go back, listen to the Off Season or 2014 Forest Hill Drive or any of his earlier works to kind of get a better feel of his music. But hey, these are just my opinions. Have you heard Might Delete Later by J. Cole? What did you think about it? Matter of fact, where do you stand on this Kendrick versus Drake and J. Cole beef? Do you want another diss record from Kendrick? Do you want Cole to maybe hop in and do something else? Do you care if Drake has anything to say about any of this? Let me know in the comments below, man. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. Like this video as well and hit the bell notification so you'll stay up to all of our posts on the page. So again, my name is Tevin El Chapo. Friends call me Chop, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace. Jermaine.